Hey everybody, it's 12:19 here, so it means it's very, very late at night, or technically very early in the morning, depending on which side of that argument you tend to lean towards. I couldn't really sleep, so I just figured I'd kind of jump on and talk about Worlds, since it's the thing that's coming up the soonest. Just some kind of ambiguous, sort of amorphous thoughts that I have about the tournament going forward, and just kind of thinking about the teams. There's a lot of news regarding Worlds right now in terms of, different teams struggling to get visas. Other teams are having members that have caught COVID sort of at the last minute, all that kind of stuff. I don't really want to talk about any of that right now, just because that stuff will kind of sort itself out. I might do a video about that stuff later. What I wanted to talk about is the kind of conversation that we have all the time going into this tournament, but I think it's a little bit different this year. And that's about the chances that the teams have going into the tournament this year. And I know every year we talk about, X, Y, or Z team that's not a major region team has a chance to get out of group stage and, make it onto, get out of play-in stage and then make it onto the group stage and, potentially have something happen. And of course, every year, we're almost always disappointed. Maybe a PCS team gets out, but that's about it. Normally, it's all the major regions that get their representative. Normally, out of the 12 teams that play in the play-ins, it's normally, LCK through LCS that gets through, all the 4 major regions. But this year, I don't think that's going to happen. And I'll explain why. So obviously with the changes to the way that Riot is treating the 2 LEC representatives, the 3rd and the 4th place representatives, obviously that's going to change a little bit in terms of how they go. For those that don't know, 3rd and 4th place for LEC, their representatives, they actually are going to be playing in the play-in stage, so they don't get the automatic 3 seed into group stage, which I think makes things interesting. I think it makes maybe a little unfair for play-ins, just because that's normally where you let the smaller regions kind of duke it out and you let them have their moment. But I think that's a little bit disingenuous to the effort that these guys put forth, and I also think that that's kind of discounts how strong some of these teams are in the play-in stage this year. And there's a couple that are legitimate contenders to get out of the group outside of the 5 major region teams that are there. And I think that this year it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, because, normally there's 1 or 2 teams that you kind of maybe give a chance to, but, looking at the list, like even in Group B, there's a couple that, might be a problem. Like Saigon Buffalo is no pushover. Like those guys, they're formerly the Fongbu Buffalo. They've been to this tournament a lot. So they that organization knows what to expect, even if it's not the same players. I mean, they understand what it takes to get wins at any stage of this tournament. Another team that's been there a lot, Detonation Focus Me. It's a very different team than it was last year. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see them play. I mean, Chiefs are decent. Beyond Gaming is obviously the representative to talk about from the PCS. Obviously, they're going to be very interesting to watch. Loud is also going to be interesting, the Brazilian representative. So, I mean, there's teams this year that you can make an argument for that they can get out. And I think that this year, of all years, it's interesting to talk about them possibly making it out, into the second stage of this tournament, because the game is in a weird state right now. It's actually not even just about how strong some of the play-ins teams are. It's actually about how weird the game is right now. Professionally, I don't think there's really any region that has everything figured out. Yes, you have a handful of champions that I think are, fairly stock standard. Obviously, you're looking at Azir and Silas and Sivir, and you're looking at Ornn and Gnar, and in the jungle, you've got like Trundle and Poppy and Sejuani and, Jarvan and Zenhao to some degree. And, you've got all that stuff going on. And then in the bot lane, as support, I mean, you've got a lot of Enchanter supports that are really strong right now, a couple of engaged supports, but not really to the extent that they have been the last couple of years. But the game feels strange right now, because the roles that are traditionally the strongest going into an international tournament are actually not the strongest right now. And even the recent patch, the patch that they'll be playing on, it hasn't changed that. Mid lane still feels fairly weak. Jungle facilitating feels like a bigger thing than it was in the last couple of Worlds, where mostly you're not playing for high damage junglers. Yes, some specific players have high KDAs, but mostly it's playing around bot lane and ADCs. It's seen to be the most important coming into the tournament out of all the regions. I think that's kind of the only thing that's been consistent, in that you pick this kind of scaling bot laner with an enchanting support that, you know, enables your ADC to kind of survive through the early levels. You absorb some pressure, you leave top lane on an island, and hopefully no one dies up there too much, and then junglers just kind of roam around trying to cause a little bit of chaos, just try to get, you know, maybe the bot lane ahead, or, you know, they respond to neutral objectives. But for the most part, champion wise, you know, it doesn't necessarily feel like one region has it all figured out. And I think a lot of different of these teams have pocket picks that, you know, we're going to see that, you know, might have some efficacy. They might be viable going into, you know, the latter stages of the tournament. Obviously certain teams will have different strategies cooked up with them. And, you know, when you're looking at trying to contend for wins in a play-in stage where one win might, you know, be the difference between moving on to group stage or not, you know, you're going to see a lot more tricks come out from some of these, you know, scrappier teams, you know, like Loud and like Saigon and like Isuris and, you know, Istanbul Wildcats. I mean, all these teams, you know, they've earned the right to be here. And they are scrappy for all the right reasons. They do all the right things. And, you know, if you let your guard down, if you're a major region team, like, you're not just going to win on merit alone. Like, you're going to have to play these teams all the way through. And you can't really underestimate them, because the minute that you think you got the game locked down, you know, that might be the moment that you lose it. And then, you know, it only takes 1 or 2 losses to see yourself out of play-ins and not going to the group stage. And, you know, looking at, there's two major region teams that are kind of suspect, you know, in this tournament. If you're looking at, you know, Fnatic or EG, you know, if you're scrutinizing them fairly closely, you know, both these teams have problems. You know, Mad Lions has issues to a certain degree. You know, RNG's been a little inconsistent. DRX obviously ended up in play-in stage for a reason. You know, they're not there by accident. Are they just better than the other minor region teams? I hate that phrase, but are they just better? Maybe not. Who knows? You know, nothing is set in stone, and, you know, you don't really know anything until you see these teams kind of get a first crack at each other, and you sort of see the dust settle. And I think really outside the first couple of games, I think, you know, the first 1 or 2 games, you can kind of, you know, not draw too much from that, but then after that, you start to get a better idea of what the teams are made of. You know, and anyone can have a moment too, and it only takes one moment to, you know, get yourself out of a tough spot, you know, and in contention for a spot to get out of groups. I mean, out of 12 teams, there's only 4 spots, and someone's got to get them. So, but I think, you know, kind of going back to the earlier point, like champion-wise, there's a lot of interesting things that can happen at this tournament. And I also think it'll be interesting to see, you know, not only from a champion perspective, but also from a strategy perspective, how a lot of these teams want to play. Because regionally, there are certain things that some regions do better than others when you're looking at how they approach the game regionally, and what things are put on importance. You know, whether or not a region puts more emphasis on getting neutral objectives, you know, like Scuttlecrab, or not Scuttlecrab, but Heralds and Dragons and things like that, maybe trying to set up for early Barons, versus teams that very heavily play for structural objectives. They try and get turrets as quickly as they can, funnel gold onto certain players, and get control of the map. I mean, some just play for the team fight. They play for areas of the map where they can win. So it's the whole thing is interesting because of the way that all of these regions approach the game differently. And there's no right answer this year. You know, there's something to be said for a team that only does team fighting, and that's their whole shtick. And they just, anytime they see you, they run at you. Or a team that doesn't want any interaction with the enemy team, and the only thing they want to do is just play the objective game and go knock down structures. You know, versus the totally completely different style of teams that play for lanes so they can get pressure to get a neutral objectives like an early dragon or stack heralds and stuff like that, and win that way. You know, there's a lot of different ways to play the game this year that are all correct. Some teams kind of combine all those things and they hit all those check marks, and some teams only have one way they play, and if they can't get that way to play, then they lose, you know, but, you know, they're really good at that one play style. So, I mean, all things considered, the play-ins is just going to be interesting this year, and I'm really excited for this tournament. I think I'm more excited for this part of the tournament than I have been in a long time, because right now it feels like the play-ins is kind of set up for the most opportunities to have the most action. So obviously here in the next couple of days, you know, it's you know, we're starting here soon. We'll see how these teams really take to this tournament and how bad they want to win. So that's kind of some late night thoughts that I was having. I don't really have any more than that, just some kind of amorphous extemporaneous thoughts. But Obviously, you guys will let me know what you think. Bill, feel free to tell me about the teams that you like the most and what you expect from them and how you expect them to win. But yeah, I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comment section or otherwise on Twitter. So let me know. But that's all I've got for you guys. So if you've made it this far on my rambling, then I appreciate it, and maybe give the video a like. I'd really appreciate it. Just let me know that you're out there. But other than that, that's all I've got. So thanks for watching, guys. Bye.